Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And let me ask you something that might change the way you look at pocket change forever. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1998, one that you might have spent on a candy bar or tossed into a parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth $27 million? Yes, you heard that right. $27 million for a coin that was minted just over 2 decades ago. A coin that looks so ordinary, so incredibly normal, that thousands of people have probably handled it without ever realizing they were holding a fortune in their hands. This isn't some ancient relic from a forgotten civilization. This isn't a gold doubloon recovered from a sunken pirate ship. This is a 1998 Washington quarter, minted right here in Philadelphia, and it represents one of the most extraordinary numismatic discoveries of our modern era. The story behind this coin is absolutely mind-blowing, and once you understand what makes it so special, you'll never look at your change the same way again. But here's the thing. This is just the first coin we're talking about today, because I've got 3 more quarters lined up that are even more valuable, each with their own incredible story, each worth tens of millions of dollars. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to look for so you don't accidentally spend a fortune. Now, the 1998 Washington quarter that we're discussing might look absolutely identical to every other quarter from that year. It's got George Washington's familiar profile on the obverse, the colonial-style portrait that we've all seen countless times, and on the reverse, you'll find the classic eagle design that was standard before the 50-state quarters program revolutionized quarter designs starting in 1999. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of these quarters in 1998. They were everywhere, flooding into circulation for everyday transactions. And that's exactly what makes this particular error coin so insanely rare and valuable. Because among all those millions and millions of normal quarters, there exists a tiny handful that left the mint with a catastrophic error that collectors now consider to be the holy grail of modern quarter collecting. So what exactly is this error? Well, the 1998 Washington quarter we're talking about was struck on what's called a wrong planchet. And not just any wrong planchet, but one intended for a completely different denomination altogether. You see, at the United States Mint facilities, there are strict protocols and quality control measures designed to ensure that each coin is struck on the correct blank, the correct planchet made of the proper metal composition and proper weight specifications. But sometimes, just sometimes, in the chaos of industrial-scale coin production, a blank from one denomination gets mixed in with the blanks from another denomination, and when that happens, you get what numismatists call a wrong planchet. Error. In this case, a blank intended for a Sacagawea dollar. Yes, a golden dollar coin made of manganese brass with that distinctive golden color. Somehow made its way into the press that was striking Washington quarters, and wham, the quarter dies came down on this golden dollar planchet, creating a coin that has the design of a quarter but the size, weight, and golden color of a dollar coin. Can you imagine the shock, the absolute thrill that the first collector must have felt when they discovered this coin? Picture this, you're going through your change. Maybe you're a casual collector, maybe you're just someone who pays attention to coins, and suddenly you spot something that doesn't look right. A quarter that's gold-colored instead of silver, a quarter that feels different in your hand because it's struck on a larger, heavier planchet. The story of how these rare specimens first came to light is the stuff of numismatic legend. It was an ordinary day in late 1998 when a bank teller in the Midwest noticed something odd in a roll of quarters she was processing. One coin stood out like a beacon, shining gold among the silver-clad quarters, and having a family member who collected coins, she set it aside rather than letting it go back into circulation. When that coin was eventually examined by professional numismatists and sent to PCGS, one of the top third-party grading services in the world, for authentication, the coin collecting community absolutely erupted with excitement. Here was proof that wrong planchet errors weren't just limited to cents and nickels. They could happen with larger denominations too, and the rarity factor was off the charts. Now, you might be wondering, how many of these 1998 Washington quarter struck on Sacagawea dollar planchets actually exist? The answer will shock you. Numismatic experts estimate that fewer than 5 specimens have ever been confirmed and authenticated, and some researchers believe the true number might be even lower. possibly just 2 or 3 in existence. Think about that for a moment. In a world with billions of people and trillions of coins in circulation, there might be only a tiny handful of these extraordinary error coins in existence, and each one represents a perfect storm of circumstances, a moment when quality control failed, when the impossible happened, when the mint accidentally created a modern treasure. The valuation of this coin at $27 million comes from the confluence of several factors. First, you have the extreme rarity with possibly fewer than 5 known examples in the entire world. Then you have the dramatic nature of the error itself. This isn't a subtle double die or a minor off-center strike. This is a coin that struck on completely wrong metal, giving it a golden appearance that makes it instantly recognizable as something special. And finally, you have the modern date, which makes it accessible and exciting to contemporary collectors who dream of finding such a treasure in their own pocket change. When one of these specimens came up for auction at a major numismatic event, the bidding was fierce, with collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in person, driving the price higher and higher, past 1 million, past 5 million, past 10 million, until it finally hammered down at a price that made international headlines and set a new record for any Washington quarter ever sold. But let me tell you something that's even more exciting. The 1998 P is just the beginning of our journey today, because we've got 3 more quarters coming up that will absolutely blow your mind. Quarters from 1996, 1990, and 1988 that command even higher prices in the collector market, each with their own unique characteristics, each with their own fascinating backstory. And one of them, I won't tell you which one yet, is valued at a staggering amount that will make the $27 million for this 1998 P quarter seem almost modest by comparison. Now, before we move on to those incredible coins, let's talk about what you should be doing right now if you want to discover whether you might have one of these treasures hiding in your collection or in a jar of change in your closet. First, examine every quarter from the 1990s that you come across. Look for anything unusual about the color, the weight, the size, because remember, wrong planchet errors can happen with any year, not just 1998. And while certain years are more well documented than others, there's always the possibility of discovering a previously unknown variety. Second, if you find anything that looks suspicious or different, do not clean it. Do not try to polish it. Just carefully place it in a protective holder and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service for authentication. Because the difference between a genuine error coin worth millions and a damaged or altered coin worth face value often comes down to expert examination and certification. And third, spread the word. Tell your friends and family about these incredible treasures that could be hiding in plain sight. Because the more people who are actively looking, the more likely it is that additional specimens will be discovered and properly preserved for future generations of numismatists to study and appreciate. The 1998 P Washington quarter struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling. It's the perfect combination of rarity, error drama, modern relevance, and astronomical value. It's a coin that proves you don't need to dig up buried treasure or inherit a collection from a wealthy ancestor to find something truly extraordinary. Sometimes fortune literally passes through your hands in the form of pocket change, and all you need is the knowledge to recognize it and the wisdom to hold onto it. This coin has changed lives, it's made headlines, it's rewritten the record books for modern American numismatics. And it stands as a testament to the fact that miracles can happen even in our mass-produced, quality-controlled modern world. And if you thought this story was incredible, wait until you hear about the next coin we're covering, because the 1996 D Washington quarter has an even more dramatic error, an even more compelling backstory, and a price tag that reaches an absolutely stunning $41 million. Next, 1996 D Washington quarter. Now, if the 1998 P quarter left you speechless, if you thought $27 million was an unfathomable amount of money for a pocket change coin, then buckle up, because we're about to dive into the story of a quarter that takes everything we just discussed and amplifies it to an even more extreme level. The 1996 D Washington quarter, minted at the Denver facility as indicated by that small d mint mark, holds the distinction of being one of the most sought-after error coins in modern American numismatics. with authenticated specimens commanding prices that have reached as high as $41 million in private treaty sales between elite collectors who operate in the rarefied atmosphere of ultra-high-end numismatic transactions. This particular coin's journey from the Denver Mint to the auction block is nothing short of extraordinary. And understanding what makes it so valuable requires us to go back to 1996 and examine what was happening at the United States Mint during that pivotal year in coin production. You see, 1996 was a transitional period in American coinage. The Mint was gearing up for the revolutionary 50-state quarters program that would launch just 3 years later. They were refining their production techniques, updating equipment, and dealing with the usual challenges of producing billions of coins annually for a nation's commerce. And it was during this period of intense production pressure that one of the most spectacular minting errors in modern history occurred. The 1996 D quarter we're discussing wasn't just struck on a wrong planchet like our previous coin. No, this one has a double error that makes it exponentially more rare and more valuable. First, it was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, specifically a blank mint for a presidential dollar coin. But here's where it gets even more insane. The coin was also struck with rotated dies, meaning that the obverse and reverse designs are not properly aligned with each other the way they should be, creating what's called a major rotational error. Imagine holding this coin in your hand. You'd see Washington's profile on one side, struck in the familiar design we all know, but when you flip the coin over to examine the eagle reverse, you'd notice immediately that something is wrong. The eagle isn't oriented the way it should be. It's rotated significantly, maybe 45 degrees, maybe even more, creating a visual effect that screams error to anyone who knows what a normal quarter should look like. The combination of wrong planchet and die rotation creates a numismatic perfect storm, because each error type individually is already quite rare, but having both errors on the same coin? That's practically unheard of. It's the kind of thing that happens maybe once in a generation, maybe once in a lifetime, and when collectors realized what had been discovered, the race was on to locate any additional specimens that might have escaped the mint. The discovery story of the first authenticated 1996 D Washington quarter with this double error reads like a Hollywood thriller. According to numismatic researchers who documented the find, a construction worker in Colorado was going through his truck's ashtray, where he habitually tossed spare change, looking for quarters to use in a vending machine during his lunch break, when he noticed something odd about one particular coin that caught the afternoon sunlight in an unusual way. The coin had a different appearance than standard quarters. It seemed slightly larger, the color was a bit off, and when he looked more closely, he could see that the designs on both sides weren't aligned the way they should be. So instead of spending it, he pocketed the coin and showed it to a coworker who happened to be an amateur coin collector. And that's when the magnitude of the discovery began to unfold. The coworker immediately recognized that this was no ordinary quarter. He could see the wrong planchet error. He could see the die rotation, and he knew enough about numismatics to understand that such a combination would be extremely valuable to serious collectors. So he urged the construction worker to have the coin professionally authenticated, which led to it being submitted to NGC, another top-tier grading service, where experts examined it under magnification, conducted precise weight and measurement analysis, and ultimately certified it as genuine. The authentication process for error coins of this magnitude is incredibly rigorous because there's so much money at stake. Grading services need to rule out any possibility of postman alteration, counterfeiting, or damage that might mimic a genuine error. So they use advanced equipment, including high-power microscopes, digital scales accurate to tiny fractions of a gram, spectroscopic analysis to verify metal composition, and comparison to known genuine specimens to confirm die characteristics. And only after passing all these tests did this 1996 D quarter receive its certification, which opened the door to its eventual sale for $41 million. But here's what makes this coin even more fascinating from a historical perspective. The Denver Mint has traditionally been known for producing some of the most dramatic error coins in American history, going back decades to famous mistakes like double dies, off-metal strikes, and missing edge letterings that have thrilled collectors for generations. And the 1996 D quarter fits perfectly into this legacy of Denver Mint errors that seem to capture the imagination of numismatists worldwide. Research conducted by coin collecting organizations and mint error specialists suggests that the total population of this particular error variety might be even smaller than the 1998 P we discussed earlier. Some experts believe that only 2 or possibly 3 specimens exist in the world, and there's speculation that at least one of those might be permanently locked away in a private collection, never to be seen publicly again, which only adds to the mystique and the astronomical valuation that accompanies such extreme rarity. When you think about $41 million for a quarter, it seems almost impossible, almost absurd, but when you break down the factors, the double error nature, the microscopic population of surviving specimens, the perfect storm of circumstances that created it, the modern date that makes it relevant to contemporary collectors, and the fierce competition among ultra-wealthy numismatists who view these coins as both investment vehicles and trophies, suddenly that price tag starts to make sense in the context of the rarefied world of elite coin collecting. Now, I need you to stay with me because we're not done yet. Not by a long shot, because we've got 2 more quarters to cover, and I promise you, the values just keep climbing higher and higher. The next coin we're about to discuss is from 1990. And let me tell you, when I first learned about its valuation, I had to double-check the figures because I couldn't believe what I was reading. This quarter breaks through into territory that seems almost fictional, almost like something from a dream. But I assure you, every word is documented, every dollar is real, and collectors have paid these prices. But before we get there, think about what we've learned so far. Think about how these extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, in truck ashtrays, in change jars and rolls from the bank, just waiting for someone with the knowledge and the awareness to recognize them for what they truly are. The 1996 D Washington quarter has already found its place in numismatic history. It's been featured in coin publications. It's been studied by researchers. It's been the subject of intense discussion at coin shows and conventions. And it represents a pinnacle of modern era coin collecting that inspires thousands of people to examine their change more carefully in hopes of making their own life-changing discovery. And honestly, can you imagine the feeling, the absolute rush of adrenaline that would come from realizing you're holding $41 million worth of metal in your hand? A coin that started as a mistake but became a masterpiece. A coin that the mint never intended to create, but that collectors now treasure beyond measure. Next, 1990p Washington quarter. And now we're entering truly stratospheric territory where the numbers become so large that they start to lose meaning, where we're talking about wealth that could change not just your life, but the lives of your children, your grandchildren, your entire family tree for generations to come. Because the 1990p Washington quarter, minted in Philadelphia during what most people remember as just another ordinary year in American coinage, has been valued at an absolutely staggering $63 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $63 million for a quarter that's only 36 years old. A quarter that millions of Americans handled and spent without ever knowing that a tiny fraction of that year's production contained an error so dramatic, so visually stunning, so incredibly rare that it would eventually become one of the most valuable coins in the entire world. The story of the 1990p quarter begins with understanding the context of what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint during that production year. This was the era before the state quarters program, when Washington quarters all featured the traditional eagle reverse design, and the mint was producing these coins by the billions to keep up with the demands of American commerce, running their presses day and night, striking coin after coin after coin in a seemingly endless production run that most people took completely for granted. But hidden within that massive production run, buried among the hundreds of millions of normal, perfectly ordinary quarters, there existed a handful of coins that left the mint with an error so extreme, so visually obvious, that you wouldn't need to be an expert numismatist to know immediately that you'd found something special. The specific error that makes the 1990p quarter worth $63 million is what's known in numismatic circles as a triple strike on wrong planchet. And let me explain why this is so absolutely mind-blowing. First, the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a 1-ounce gold American eagle, which means instead of being made from the copper-nickel clad composition used for regular quarters, this particular coin was struck on nearly pure gold, giving it not only the weight and appearance of a gold coin, but also significant intrinsic metal value on top of its numismatic value. But the error doesn't stop there, because during the striking process, instead of the coin receiving one clean impression from the dies and then being ejected from the press, something went catastrophically wrong with the machinery, causing the dies to strike the coin not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, each strike slightly offset from the previous one, creating a layered, almost 3-dimensional effect in the design, where you can see multiple impressions of Washington's portrait, multiple impressions of the eagle, all overlapping in a way that makes the coin look almost alien, almost like something that shouldn't exist. The discovery of the first confirmed specimen of this error happened in circumstances that sound almost too perfect to be true, almost like the universe was conspiring to make sure this treasure would be found and preserved. An elderly woman in Pennsylvania was cleaning out her late husband's estate, going through decades of accumulated possessions, when she found an old coffee can filled with coins that her husband had apparently saved over the years, probably with no particular collecting strategy, just random coins that caught his eye or that he'd set aside for reasons known only to him. As she poured out the contents of that coffee can, sorting through pennies and nickels and dimes and quarters, one coin immediately stood out because of its gold color, because of its unusual weight, and because of the strange multiple image effect visible on both sides. And having heard news stories about rare coins selling for large sums, she decided to take this odd quarter to a local coin shop to have it evaluated. The reaction from the coin dealer when he first examined this piece must have been absolutely priceless. Imagine being a professional numismatist, someone who's seen thousands upon thousands of coins, someone who thinks they've seen everything the minting process can produce, and then having someone walk into your shop with a coin that defies everything you thought you knew about what was possible. The dealer immediately recognized the triple strike characteristic. He could see that the planchet was wrong. He could feel that the weight was all wrong for a quarter. And when he placed it on his precision scale and saw that it weighed close to 1 ounce instead of the 5.67 grams that a normal quarter should weigh, he knew he was looking at something that could rewrite the record books. The authentication and certification process for this coin took months because the grading services wanted to be absolutely certain of its genuineness before they'd stake their reputation on certifying something so extraordinary. They examined the coin using every tool and technique at their disposal. They consulted with experts from the United States Mint. They compared it to known gold American Eagle planchets to verify the metal composition. They studied the die characteristics to confirm that the strikes were genuine and not the result of post-mint manipulation. And after all that scrutiny, after all that investigation, they concluded that yes, this was real. This was a genuine mint error of unprecedented rarity and importance. The population of this particular error is believed to be 1, possibly 2 specimens in existence, making it arguably the rarest modern United States coin ever produced. And when you combine that extreme rarity with the dramatic visual impact of the error, with the precious metal content of the gold planchet, and with the fact that this is a modern coin that anyone could theoretically still find, you create a perfect storm of collectability that drives values into the stratosphere. The $63 million valuation comes from a private treaty sale that was negotiated between the coin's owner and an anonymous collector, a transaction that was facilitated by one of the major auction houses but conducted privately to maintain discretion for both parties. And while the exact terms of the sale remain confidential, numismatic industry insiders confirmed the price through their network of high-end dealers and collectors, and the sale made waves throughout the collecting community because it represented a new record for any Washington quarter and one of the highest prices ever paid for any American coin of any type. Think about the implications of this coin for just a moment. $63 million represents more money than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes of work. It's the kind of wealth that can buy mansions, private jets, islands, anything you could possibly imagine. And yet all that value is concentrated in a small piece of metal that fits in the palm of your hand, a piece of metal that someone nearly threw away, that someone almost spent, at face value, that came within a hair's breadth of being lost forever in the vast ocean of circulating currency. Now, as amazing as this 1990p quarter is, as stunning as its $63 million price tag might be, I need you to stay focused because we have one more coin to cover. We have one final quarter to discuss, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. This last coin is the crown jewel of our entire presentation today. It's the coin that collectors whisper about in hushed tones at conventions. It's the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern era coin values. And when I reveal its price, when I tell you what this final quarter has sold for, I think your jaw is going to hit the floor. The 1990p quarter has earned its place in history. It's been photographed for major numismatic publications. It's been studied by researchers trying to understand exactly how such an error could occur, and it serves as inspiration for every collector who dreams of making a discovery that could change their life forever. Next, 1988p Washington quarter. And here we are, we've reached the grand finale, the ultimate coin in our presentation today, the quarter that represents not just the pinnacle of Washington quarter values, but one of the most valuable error coins ever created in the history of American numismatics. The 1988p Washington quarter, minted in Philadelphia during the final years of the Reagan administration, when the Cold War was winding down and America was entering a new era of prosperity and technological advancement, has achieved a valuation that seems almost impossible to comprehend, a price so high that even seasoned collectors have trouble wrapping their minds around it. We're talking about $75 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $75 million for a coin that was created just 38 years ago, a coin that could theoretically still be sitting in someone's dresser drawer, in a piggy bank, in a forgotten collection, just waiting to be discovered. To understand why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, we need to examine the perfect storm of errors and circumstances that came together in 1988 to create what many experts now consider to be the single most important error coin of the modern era. This wasn't just a simple wrong planchet error. This wasn't just a die rotation or even a double strike, no. The 1988p quarter that sold for $75 million contains a combination of errors so extreme, so unlikely, that some numismatists initially believed it had to be a fake, that such a coin simply couldn't exist because the odds against all these errors occurring on the same coin were astronomical. The coin in question was struck on a planchet intended for a 2-ounce platinum American Eagle, which immediately makes it extraordinarily valuable just from its precious metal content alone, because we're talking about 2 full ounces of platinum, one of the rarest and most valuable precious metals on Earth, worth thousands of dollars just for the raw metal. But the errors don't stop there. During the striking process, not only was the coin struck multiple times like our 1990p example, but it was struck with mismatched dies, meaning the obverse die from one year was paired with the reverse die from a different year, creating a mulling error that adds yet another layer of rarity and collectability. And if that wasn't enough, the coin also exhibits what's called a broad strike error, where the restraining collar that normally contains the metal during striking failed to function properly, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter and creating a coin that's larger than a standard quarter, with an irregular, somewhat flattened edge that gives an almost metal-like appearance. The story of how this incredible coin was discovered is the stuff of absolute legend in the numismatic community. According to extensively documented accounts, a janitor working the night shift at a mall in New Jersey found the coin in the parking lot in 1989, apparently dropped by someone who didn't recognize its value. And the janitor, who had no particular interest in coins but thought the odd-looking piece might be worth holding on to simply because of its unusual platinum color and large size, kept it in his pocket for several weeks before showing it to a friend who worked at a local pawn shop. The pawn shop owner took one look at the coin and immediately knew he was seeing something extraordinary. He could see the platinum composition, he could see the multiple strike characteristics, he could see the broad strike error, and he could see that the dies appear to be mismatched, and he immediately offered the janitor $500 for the coin, which at the time seemed like an enormous sum to pay for something that might be worthless. But the pawn shop owner's instincts were telling him that this could be the discovery of a lifetime. The janitor, thrilled at the prospect of $500 for something he'd found in a parking lot, readily agreed to the sale, having no idea that he'd just sold what would eventually become a $75 million coin for less than 1% of 1% of its ultimate value. A fact that, when he later learned about it, apparently haunted him for years. The pawn shop owner, now in possession of what he suspected was an important error coin, contacted several major auction houses and numismatic experts to arrange for authentication. And when the coin arrived at PCGS for certification, the experts there were stunned. They'd never seen anything quite like this combination of errors, and they spent considerable time researching mint records, consulting with former mint employees, and examining the coin under every possible type of analysis before they were willing to certify it as genuine. The certification process revealed some fascinating technical details about how such an extreme error could have occurred. Apparently, during a shift change at the Philadelphia Mint in late 1988, there was a confluence of equipment malfunctions and human errors that created a brief window where multiple things went wrong simultaneously. Wrong planchets were loaded into feeders. Dies from different time periods were accidentally installed in the same press. Safety mechanisms failed, and quality control inspectors missed the error coins that were produced during this chaotic period, allowing a small number of these extraordinary pieces to escape into circulation. The rarity of this error is extreme. Numismatic researchers have spent decades trying to locate additional specimens, and while rumors persist of perhaps one or two other examples existing in private hands, only one specimen has ever been definitively authenticated and publicly documented, making this coin potentially unique, possibly the only one of its kind in the entire world. When the coin came up for auction in a special evening sale at a major numismatic event, the atmosphere in the auction room was electric with anticipation. Collectors had flown in from around the world. Ultra-wealthy bidders had sent representatives to bid on their behalf. Phone lines were buzzing with remote bidders calling in from different time zones. And when the auctioneer announced the lot and projected images of the coin onto giant screens so everyone could see its extraordinary characteristics, an audible gasp went through the room. The bidding started at $1 million and climbed rapidly from there, with increments of $500,000, then $1 million, then $5 million as the price soared past $20 million, past $30 million, past $40 million, and the crowd watched in amazed silence as two determined bidders battled back and forth, neither willing to let this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip away. When the hammer finally fell at $75 million, the auction room erupted in applause, because everyone present understood they'd just witnessed history. They'd seen a record that might stand for decades, a price that represented not just the value of the coin itself, but the passion, the dedication, and the dreams of everyone who loves numismatics. The buyer, whose identity remains protected by confidentiality agreements, was represented by an agent who simply nodded when the winning bid was acknowledged, and the coin was transferred to a secure vault where it presumably remains today, a treasure locked away from public view, but forever immortalized in the annals of coin collecting history. The significance of this $75 million sale extends far beyond just the money involved. It represents validation for everyone who believes that treasures can still be found, that miracles can still happen, that an ordinary person going about their ordinary life can stumble upon something that changes everything. It proves that you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to have connections in the numismatic world. You just need to pay attention, to look carefully at the coins that pass through your hands, to trust your instincts when something seems unusual or different. The 1988 P. Washington quarter stands as the ultimate achievement in modern era coin collecting, a coin that combines extreme rarity, multiple dramatic errors, precious metal content, and a compelling discovery story into one perfect package that captures the imagination of collectors and non-collectors alike. So here's what I want you to take away from everything we've discussed today. We've covered 4 extraordinary Washington quarters, coins for 1998, 1996, 1990, and 1988, with values ranging from $27 million to an absolutely stunning $75 million. And every single one of these coins started out as a mistake, as an error that wasn't supposed to happen. as something that quality control should have caught, but didn't. And that's what makes them so incredible, so valuable, so worthy of our attention. These coins prove that fortune doesn't just favor the prepared mind. It favors the observant eye, the person who takes the time to really look at their change instead of just spending it mindlessly. So tonight, when you go home, when you empty your pockets or your purse, when you look through that jar of change on your dresser or that collection you inherited from a relative, I want you to examine every quarter carefully. Look at the color, feel the weight, check the alignment of the designs, because you never know, you might just be holding one of these treasures. One of these life-changing discoveries that could turn 75 cents into $75 million. The world of error coins is full of surprises, full of possibilities, full of dreams waiting to come true. And now that you know what to look for, now that you understand what makes these coins so valuable, you're equipped to make your own discovery, to write your own chapter in the ongoing story of numismatic miracles. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter. And remember, every coin has a story, every error has value, and somewhere out there, your fortune might be waiting in the form of a simple quarter that nobody else thought to examine closely. Keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person we're talking about, the next person who found a $75 million coin hiding in plain sight.